Today we're looking at polygons, specifically quadrilaterals. I can classify polygons based on their sides and their angles. It's part of the standard. I can identify quadrilaterals, including squares, rectangles, rhombuses, parallelograms, trapezoids, and kites of the Minnesota State Standards. So take out your notebook and I want you to write polygon on the top. Polygons were separated into different categories by their sides. A three-sided figure, a four-sided figure, a five-sided figure, and so on and so forth. We talked about triangles already, which is your three-sided figure. We talked about acute, obtuse right triangles, scalene, isosceles, equilateral triangles. Four-sided figures are your quadrilaterals. Five-sided would then be pentagon, six-sided hexagon, seven-sided septagon or heptagon, so on and so forth. And we've talked about how it has the prefix, which would be the number, and then they all have a gon. These two do not, because of the simple fact that there are other families underneath them. So today we're looking at the quadrilateral family. The quadrilaterals were broken into three parts based on if they had no parallel sides, one set of parallel sides, or two sets of parallel sides. If they didn't have any parallel sides, the only name it could be is a quadrilateral. There is an anomaly that we're going to talk about in a little bit, but otherwise all quadrilaterals, or all four-sided shapes that do not have parallel sides, are called quadrilaterals. If they have one set of parallel sides, they're called trapezoids. And what you will see to know it is parallels, there'd be little arrows showing like this to show that they are parallel. They're not congruent, they're just parallel to each other. Trapezoids really aren't broken down into any other families, except such as in this case, you could call this one more specific an isosceles trapezoid because these two sides are the same. But otherwise, it's just a trapezoid, which is also a quadrilateral, which is also a polygon. So those would be the three names of that shape: trapezoid, quadrilateral, polygon. So now let's look at ones that have two sets of parallel sides, because this is where things can get a little crazy. They're called parallelograms. And again, we know they're parallel because they'll have little arrows. This side is parallel to this side, and this side is parallel to this side. So if they have two sets of parallel sides, they're called a parallelogram, which is also then called a quadrilateral. Parallelograms were broken into two categories. If they have four equal sides, they're called a rhombus. And then you would see four congruent lines. If they just have four right angles, they're considered a rectangle. It doesn't matter how many sides are the same. They would just have their four right angles in them. But these two came together because what happens if I have a rhombus that does have four equal sides but also four right angles? Or vice versa, a rectangle with four right angles but it has four equal sides, we know those as a square. So a rhombus with four equal sides and four right angles is a square. Or a rectangle with four right angles and four equal sides is also a square. When you read the chart, you actually want to read it going up. If here's your starting point, you always go up your chart. So if I want to talk about a square is a rectangle, who is a parallelogram, which is a quadrilateral, which is also a polygon. So a square is a rectangle because you can go up your chart. I don't know why that arrow doesn't want to show up. But a rectangle is not a square. So a square is a rectangle because I can go, and a square is a rectangle, which is a parallelogram, which is also a rhombus, and it's a quadrilateral. So you go up the chart. Trapezoid again has only one other name, quadrilateral. So now you have this anomaly over here with no sides are the same. 9 times out of 10 they're called quadrilaterals unless it has a specific shape like this one, a kite. A kite kind of has two categories to figure out that it's a kite. One, it has along the middle, its diagonals from vertex to vertex going across. If it creates a 90-degree angle, you know that it's a kite. So diagonals form 90 degrees. The other way you know it's a kite is when the top two sides are congruent to each other and the bottom two are congruent to each other. So a kite has only one other name, it's a quadrilateral. This is where it can get also a little tricky, and the fact is a rhombus could be considered in a kite, but a kite is not a rhombus, because in order to be a rhombus it has to have 4 equal sides. But because if I cut a rhombus into its diagonals, I would get a 90-degree angle. Just like in a square, if I cut that, I would get a 90-degree angle. So it has the same qualities as a kite. This is your quadrilaterals family tree. So remember, as you do your worksheet, if you pick out rhombus, you also have to say it's a rhombus, is a parallelogram, is a quadrilateral.